Our top story, Russian President Vladimir Putin will be arriving in India shortly for a two-day visit, during which New Delhi and Moscow will be signing several deals, including a deal on the sale of the Russian S-400 air defense systems to India. Putin will be holding the 19th annual India-Russia bilateral summit along with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The countries will be signing over 20 different arms and energy deals in the wake of the United States sanctions against Russia and its defense imports. However, there have been indications that the US will grant India a presidential waiver, which would give New Delhi a go-ahead for the deal, notwithstanding the sanctions. Notably, India and Russia will be signing the $5 billion S-400 Triumph air defense deal, as we said, allowing India to procure Russia's most advanced surface-to-air missile system. The other arms deal on agenda include an agreement over the production of AK-103 assault rifles in India and the sale of frigate-class warships to the Indian Navy. Apart from the key defense agreements, the two nations are expected to sign a deal on the training of the first ever Indian space crew in Russia. And the last annual summit between Russia and India was held in June 2017 in St. Petersburg. Putin and Mr. Modi also had an informal summit in the Russian city of Sochi in May this year. And joining us for more on this is now my colleague and principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibbal from New Delhi. Siddhant, thanks very much for joining us. So, give us the big takeaways, of course, one being the S-400 missile system, but a lot more expected as well from this trip.
Yes, Beher, the stage is all set for the visit of the Russian president. He will be shortly arriving within 45 minutes here in New Delhi, and he might be received by the Prime Minister himself, given the fact that the relationship between Russia and India has been strategic and privileged one. And of course, the big focus has been the S-400 deal. Kremlin has confirmed that this deal is going to take place. It's an important deal for India's defense and security architecture, especially gives an edge given the fact that India does faces a threat of a two-front war from Pakistan and China. But this deal, of course, it's causing some heartburns in Washington, because under the American CAATSA law, India can be sanctioned because India has this significant defense engagement with Russia, and under this law, any country having defense engagement with Russia faces the sanction. But the US President Donald Trump can give India a waiver. Question is, when will he give the waiver? But given the close ties between Delhi and Washington, especially when it comes to Indo-Pacific construct, where both the countries consider themselves as the bookend of this concept, India will get a waiver along with Indonesia and Vietnam. But this S-400 deal, it's a $5 billion deal, is also important given the fact that China has increased its defense expenditure. But other than the S-400 deal, there are several packs, 20 as you have already told our viewers. But among the most important is that Russia will give training to the astronauts who will be taking part in Gaganyaan. That's India's first manned mission outside the space, which will come true by 2022. The Indian Prime Minister had announced it from the ramparts of the Red Fort during his Independence Day speech. So these are the things that's going to happen. But India needs Russia, given the fact that we have seen an increasingly assertive Beijing and an unpredictable Donald Trump administration in Washington. So India would like to have Russia close to its side, and the relationship between both the countries have been a long-term relationship which has been time-tested, and both the countries are partners under various multilateral organizations such as the SCO, BRICS, and of course Russia backs India in the UNSC also.
Yeah, that's true, Siddhant, that the Russians have backed us on several multilateral forums. And, you know, one of the arguments many say is that the US sanctions are actually pushing us closer to Russia. You know, Russia has been a close aid of us for many, many years, even before the United States. And that sort of relationship that went apart, you know, in the middle is back on track. And this is a relationship that will be keenly watched both by China as well as the United States.
Yes, definitely. Everyone will be watching the close ties between Russia and India. The relationship has been long-standing one, and of course we have a historical relationship from the Soviet era. But a big pillar of this is defense. 70% of our defense equipment is Russian origin, is Soviet origin, such as tanks, such as T-72, T-90, and of course the nuclear power submarine and Vikramaditya aircraft carrier. And even though we have increased our defense expenditure, defense trade with the US, it's at $15 billion and bought a lot of stuff from the Americans. Still, the Americans are still not giving India the technology such as nuclear capable submarines. So these technologies are given by Russia, and the biggest, of course, worry today, which every country faces, is it's a multipolar world. The situation is quite in flux, and at this time, everyone would like to have good friends, whether it's with Russia, China, and US, and that is what India is trying to do. And this is the second meet between the Indian Prime Minister and Russian President. First, of course, we saw that famous informal summit in Sochi, and after this annual summit happening here in New Delhi, which will of course begin tomorrow here in New Delhi, and India is already decked up in New Delhi, is already decked up in Russian colors with flags all around.
Right, and of course, Siddhant, with any high-profile visit, the optics have to be very important for the world to watch, and what people will be waiting for in the next few minutes will be, of course, whether the Prime Minister actually goes to the airport, receives the Russian President, also if there's that famous hug, and also line up for us what we can expect in the next 2 days, sort of the engagements other than meeting the Prime Minister.
Well, other than meeting the Prime Minister, he meets the Prime Minister twice. First today at 7:30 p.m. India time, and of course tomorrow at the Hyderabad House, and then of course the bilateral engagement. But other than that, he's going to also meet students, children, and he is going to address a business forum. Business is a key component, and both the countries are looking at approximately $30 billion of trade with each other by the year 2035. And right now the trade relationship is not that robust as we have relationship with the Americans, but we are opening new trade routes, and of course connectivity plans are also being thought about. One of course is the Moscow-Mumbai connectivity plan through the north-south corridor, the transport corridor that goes via Iran. So Iranian sanctions is one thing that is of course going to feature as a top priority when both the leaders sit. But as you said, optics are important and body language is also important. So everyone will be watching the body language, which of course is very positive given the fact last year what we saw at the St. Petersburg summit, where the Indian Prime Minister was along with the Russian President was part of an event in which questions were put, and of course he was very informal and chatty about his friendly relationship with the Russian President. So by and large it's a relationship which is of course important and time tested, but tomorrow the focus will be how things go about, and especially the missile deal, that's the S-400 deal.
Right, Siddhant, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the very latest there. We will keep coming back to you for more updates as President Putin arrives home. In a big relief to the consumers over fuel prices, the Indian Finance Minister has announced an immediate relief of 2.5 rupees on both petrol and diesel prices. And this, of course, comes after days of spike in fuel prices.
जहां तक रेवेन्यू विभाग है, कंज्यूमर्स को रिलीफ देने के लिए ये 3 हिस्सों में बटेगा। एक्साइज ड्यूटी हम लोग ₹1.50 कम करेंगे, और जो ओएमसीज हैं वो ₹1 की कटौती अपनी प्राइसिंग में फैक्टर इन करेंगी। तो केंद्र सरकार की तरफ से हम लोग ₹2.50 तुरंत कंज्यूमर्स को इसका रिलीफ देंगे।
And holding that press briefing, the Finance Minister further stated that the government has reduced the borrowings to counter the effect of crude price hike. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, however, added that the government will not be going back on the deregulation of fuel prices, stating that the international fuel prices were responsible for the hike in domestic prices. The minister urged the state governments to match the centre's cut so that the consumers get an effective relief of 5 rupees a litre. Maharashtra and Gujarat have followed suit, but Maharashtra has cut only the petrol prices by 2.5 rupees and not the diesel prices. It remains to be seen if other states too will come forward to give respite from the soaring fuel prices. And while joining us to talk a little bit more about the falling rupee, the fuel prices and the markets is my colleague and business correspondent Sumit Chaturvedi. And Sumit, now, if the crude touches 100 rupees, $100 a barrel, then can the government really sustain this? And how likely is it to go up?
Well, Barry, that's a very valid question, because if that happens, definitely it's going to be a nightmarish situation as far as government is concerned, because right now at $85 to a barrel, this kind of situation we are seeing, and further going up, if it reaches $100 to a barrel, clearly this reduction which we have seen today will be of no use, because then they have to increase the prices, because if it goes up, and as we know that the oil prices are decontrolled, if it goes up in the global markets, in Indian markets, we have to see the impact. It will be seen. So because the fuel prices have been decontrolled a few years ago. So that's a very valid question. If it goes till $100 to a barrel, government will have to raise the prices in that way. This relief which has been given today will be of no use. But yes, in the short term, this has been, it's of a good, big relief coming for consumers. This combined with state relief, 5 rupees, which is a good relief, and government has been talking about that since long time. Today they have finally bitten the bullet and taken the decision. Going forward, it has to be seen what measures they will take if crude goes further, because that's going to be a big problem, and a weakening rupee will be definitely giving a double whammy to the government. And there's likelihood of that happening. Also, traders across the world are saying that with the sanctions on Iran coming into force in November, clearly 10 to 15% of global crude will go out of reach of many countries. This in a way will enable that $100 to a barrel, which can reach definitely as far as crude is concerned.
Right. So then, of course, this could be a very short-term relief, Sumit, in a sense, for consumers, even as Mr. Jaitley has urged other states. Now, this coming at a time when the markets have tanked significantly as well in the last 2 days, and the rupee spiral has also not sort of improved at all.
Well, absolutely. Markets have reacted to all of that, all the negative comments that have come. Tomorrow it's to be seen, because tomorrow RBI, whose monetary policy meeting started today, will announce the decision tomorrow afternoon whether the interest rate hikes will happen or not. Either way, it will be a big decision to be taken at this point of time when there are big macroeconomic problems in the system. Rupee is weakening, crude is up, and there are problems with the other macroeconomic conditions, global trade war. So RBI decision will be seen tomorrow, and by tomorrow evening we'll be definitely chatting up on this RBI decision, whether interest rates have gone down or not.
Well, absolutely, Sumit. Look forward to that. And of course, as the worries continue for consumers, this could be very well a very short-term relief for all of us. Well, with that, it's a wrap on WION Dispatch. The news and updates continue on the other side with our focus on President Putin's visit.